Hi, my name is Stephen Benedict, and I'm a professional track and field athlete. I've run in prestigious amounts of races across the nation and throughout the world. And today on the Dov Baron Show, we're going to be covering how to stay in your lane with the big dogs and not run their races. Run your race, because your race is more important than running anybody else's race. Keep core to your values, keep true to who you are, and become a higher, better professional with these proven values that I've developed as an elite athlete.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron, is the founder of FullMontyLeadership.com. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Tips for Executives, part of the Full Monty interview series. I'm your host, Dov Baron, founder of Full Monty Leadership, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness so you can reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. Today, we're going to be taking an insider look at, do we succeed because of our privilege or adversity? Remember, you can now chat about this episode or any episode of ours on our Facebook community page. Just go to Facebook and look up Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. There you can chat inside the community with other listeners. If you're a new listener, new viewer, thank you for joining us. Strap yourself in. We're about to go full Monty. Remember, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we always need your help in staying relevant. So please get yourself over to iTunes, rate, review, and subscribe to the show. You can also catch us on traditional radio stations across the United States every Monday and Thursday. We are all the way from Las Vegas to Philadelphia. And you can look for us on Roku TV, where there's over 100,000 subscribers. And if you're a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners with a potential reach of 2.5 to 4 million listeners for every show. We're honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. You can also catch us on Google Home and Alexa by simply saying, play Dov Baron Podcast. Again, thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. All right, let's strip it down, dive right in. As a leader, whether you're a CEO, someone in the C-suite, a sales leader, a leader in any capacity, you know that leader can seem to be about winning, but in truth, it's about much more. It's about training. It's about mental training. It's about emotional preparation. It's about mindset. It's also about pacing and supporting the team that you're part of. So how can you possibly balance all these things and win, particularly when the odds are stacked against you? Well, stay tuned because you're about to find out. George Sheehan wrote, "Why race? The need to be tested, perhaps? The need to take risks, the chance at being #1. Well, our guest today has encountered every reason not to race, from abandonment to abuse, family deception, untimely deaths, drugs, and alcohol. Olympian, professional athlete, Stephen Benedict was confronted with more obstacles before the age of 28 than the majority of people face in a lifetime. Despite the hardships, Stephen has applied what he learned on the track to remain focused on the finish line. His rules for running the race translate into almost every industry, every purpose, every person, every circumstance. His story reminds us all of us, as long as you have breath in your lungs, there's still a race to be run. He's featured in 50 national and international magazines such as Train, ESPN Magazine, Men's Fitness, Men's Health, and Fitness RX. He's also the author of Good Morning Superstar and Fostering Success. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Olympian, speaker, and leader, Stephen Benedict!
That is the best introduction I have gotten in quite a long time.
Welcome, mate. It's good to have you here.
I appreciate you guys having me. Thank you very much for
having me. I'm excited to have this conversation. You've been on quite a journey, mate. You've been on quite a journey. We're going to get to all these kinds of things, and I want to just start there, because whether we admit it or not, we all become what we become as a result of our life experiences. For some folks, that leads them down a very dark path. For others, it's leverage to what they want, and others go into the dark path so far that they actually bounce off the rock bottom and use it as a springboard to turn their life around. Your life started out pretty rough. Tell us a little bit about where it all began, because, you know, it's easy to look at you and go, oh, Olympian. Ooh, yeah, it must have been a privileged life, special schools and lots of all kinds of good stuff. But it wasn't that way, right?
No, not at all. You know, it was actually the opposite. You know, I felt like I've been on a fight for the first half of my life since day one. I mean, I went right into, at 4 months years old, I went directly into foster care. And that was due to an unstable mother. And then I was put back in her hands until my brother was born, and we're 2.5 years apart, only to be put back into foster care after a very short manner of time because of severe abuse that we were you know, impacted by her boyfriend. And, you know, it's just a lot of instability, and we were living in at a hotel rooms, you know, so there was nothing there for us.
So how old were you at that point?
At that point, I was only 3. My brother was I was 3. My brother was only newborn. He was only about 1.5.
So you guys are, I mean, he's a baby, you're an infant.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Your mom, why was she leaving you in a hotel room, and why were you being beaten by your stepdad?
You know,
alcoholic, drug addict, what was it?
Yeah, there was a lot of different situations in that sense. There was alcohol, there was abuse going on, and this wasn't even our birth father. This was a outside gentleman that was dating her. So
how very kind of you to say gentleman.
Yeah, I know, right?
It does not sound like a gentleman.
No, not at all.
Have different categories for gentlemen.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm trying to keep it clean for lack of yeah. That story came back around a little later, you know, where I grew up a little, and he kind of came back into the picture after I was adopted. But you know, you know, it was a very fast upbringing for me. I always say that my childhood, or their lack of childhood, was very excelled, in the sense that I had to try to be a child, but also had to be a father figure for my brother, and I was very protective of my brother, because he was, you know, he didn't know what was going on, so I had to step up and be that role. So, you know, Christmases and all those things, those were the only thing important to us at that period of our time was to have a hot bed, a warm meal, and a roof over our head. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So you were adopted out from being initially, then you went back to your mom, then you were adopted out again. Right. I'm assuming you were taken away because of lack of care.
Yes, it got really bad at that point. I was hospitalized, and for, you know, severe abuse, and then we went back into foster care, and we stayed in foster care and bounced around up and down the East Coast for about 6 years, until we were blessed enough to be adopted by 2 great individuals at the age.
So how old were you at that time?
I was 8, and my brother was 6.
And you got adopted together?
Yes, we got adopted together, which is very rare.
Very rare.
Yes. So, you know, we were very lucky to be put into that situation and have them as our parents.
And they were good people?
Exceptional. I couldn't.
So, you know, it's interesting, because, as you know, my background is in psychology. Mm-hmm. And we know the formative years are very, you know, they are very impressionable.
Right.
And so you've grown up in this violence, abuse, neglect of the yin yang, mm-hmm. and then the contradiction of that it's very easy for a person to not even see the contradiction, but to be so ingrained in the anger and frustration of being brought up in such a horrible situation. And of course, as you said, forced out of childhood way before it was natural. Yet you got adopted by these people. From a psychological point of view, do you feel like they in some way gave you childhood back?
I don't know.
Or was it not that?
They did, in a sense. There was a lot of things happening at that point. Obviously, it was a big transition phase for both of us to have that understanding of knowing that, okay, now this is a permanent thing. This is not, we're not going back to where we were. This is actually.
Did you trust that?
No, initially we didn't. Trust was way out the door at that point.
Of course.
I didn't trust adults. I had a super, and this went on for years. Lack of trust for women, especially because of my mother.
Of course.
So there was a lot of things that had to be worked on internally, externally, everything. For my brother, it was very hard. He didn't understand the fact because obviously he was still young, and I was taking the brunt of things and absorbing a lot of the hits at that point. So for him, he didn't understand the transition from foster care to a real family. He thought foster care was our real family. And he became very belligerent, and he was throwing fits all the time. He thought they were taking us away from our family when in fact it wasn't. And for me, I knew what was happening, but I was always very observant to my surroundings and just watching and being very protective of him. So where he was being very belligerent and very outspoken and, bouncing off the walls all over the place, I was being very calm and very observant and very quiet. I didn't speak for probably about the first 2 months within my new family. They thought something was wrong with me, but I was just always very quiet and very observant, and it's the quiet ones you got to watch out for.
So you were really just seeing, is this really a safe place?
Right.
You're sort of looking around, going, yeah, it looks good, but no reason to trust these bastards. They're adults.
Right. Exactly. I was like, well, all right. Well, where's the catch?
Yeah, of course.
What's coming? What's coming next?
So let's just fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
When's the point of trust?
Well, I think the point of trust was just the unsurmountable amount of care and love that they just gave us right off the bat, and not only from them as our parents, but as the family as a whole. My aunts, my uncles, my grandparents, everybody just came together and knew that we were supposed to be there with them. I mean, we had a huge adoption party. We had family vacations. They exposed us to so much as far as art and education and music and sports. All of these entities coming together just overwhelmed us with reassurance, that knowing that, yes, this is where we're supposed to be. This is our plan, and this is our second chance at life.
Wow. So I'm assuming that it was in that home that you were exposed to sports.
Yes, it was.
Now, again, it would be natural to assume that you got into sports, they were wealthy, you sent to special schools, you got the great trainers, and you became an Olympian. But that's bullshit too. So tell us, let's poke some holes in that story.
Yeah, the track didn't come till later, but I had to say is that, which is funny because I don't know really where my athletic ability comes from, because there's a lot of question marks about my past. So that's a question mark. But our first sport, I feel, that laid the groundwork for everything. I did 10 years of judo. So that was my first sport, and my brother's as well. The martial arts really just laid the foundation for what I was able to do later on into other sports. And judo is still one of my favorite sports. I still go back to it whenever I have a chance. But that was the first sport that just kind of opened up the doors and opened up our eyes to the athletic ability that I did have. And then from there, just started everything under the sun, from baseball to soccer to football, everything. But within that period of time, my mother, who we say ruled with the iron fist in Italian, so she had her hands in everything. And she was just kind of guiding us through everything, involved in everything, so protective of us, totally opposite of what our life started out with.
So your birth mother who did not take care of you or protect you at all, your adoptive mother was incredibly, maybe a little overprotective?
Oh gosh, I mean the stories behind her to this day. I have ex-girlfriends who say, they remember my mother, and they were like, "Oh," I was like, "Yeah, she was a great woman." She was like, "Yeah, I remember when we were down at the baseball field and your mother yelled out to us, 'Stay away from my boys, you little whore.'"
Yeah. Oh, that's welcoming.
Right, exactly. I was like, "Mom, I'm never gonna have a girlfriend like this." So, yeah.
You will die a virgin, and I will make sure of it.
Right, exactly.
or somebody else will die in the process.
That too. Yeah.
So, so when did you start into the path of track? Because that's where you've excelled. That's where you've become an Olympian.
Well, I got to say that my first race, and that was just kind of off the board and just whatever the case, I didn't even really think about it, was I was in summer camp one year, and they have, from all the camps around the state, they do kind of like these little mini Olympics. And from each individual camp, they have all these different events, and they take some of the best kids around. And so I was the best in my camp at running. I ran the 100 there. And so they took me, and they would take, several little athletes, and then they brought them to this big stadium where all the camps around the world, or all the camps around the state at that time, which was New Jersey, and we would all race against each other. That was my first kind of, I guess, big race, you could say. And
how old were you then?
Gosh, I think I was maybe 9. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
9, and I wound up taking third. We had these big gaudy medals that were given to us, but I still have them. And that was kind of like my first race experience. Now, I didn't think anything of it at the time. I was just running, just a kid, and you're just running. You just love the sense of the competition, and the crowd was, cheering and stuff. I didn't think anything of it at that time. But that was kind of my first experience of running and being able to run fast, and people knowing me as being able to run fast.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sort of to tie these things together, because again, from a psychological point of view,
yes.
What you grew up with and the experience of that, and then having this protective mother and learning that you can actually trust these people, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there is bound to be latent anger and frustration and the resentment that's been pushed down. Mm-hmm. Your brother was obviously bouncing off the walls, and he was expressing it. Right. You were being calm, but it didn't mean it went away. Right. So what happened to all the old rage?
That is a good question. And that resurfaced several times. One particular time I can recall, and that was in high school. That was actually 2. There was one specifically that was triggered by one of my teachers in Catholic school. She had made it so convenient to call out the fact that you weren't accepted, you're adopted, and whatever this and that. That struck a nerve and kind of just threw me off totally. And then my second big actual kind of meltdown, so to say, was in high school. And that happened in the middle of class, and there was just a bunch of things happening. I think it was my sophomore year in high school. And just as you said, that was a huge factor for me, as I was always bottling stuff up, and I was always absorbing, repress, because I was like, well, I have to be the strong one here. I have to take all of this. And from my way of thinking, that men don't express themselves by crying, or by letting out their emotions in public or anything like that. So I had to repress it, and I had to act tough, and I had to put on that facade. That all caught up with me, and I had to go get some counseling, and I had to kind of express these aspects and get rid of them, and not get rid of them, but learn from them, and learn how to use them in a better manner, and how to really use my emotions to for a positive instead of breaking me down.
See, and this is one of the things that when I find people who are of excellence, people who are the elite class in what they do, there are certain factors that are across the board with these individuals. They're purpose driven, they're in service, but every one of them has confronted their own darkness. The ones who are really top of their game as human beings as well as leaders have confronted their own darkness. And many of them, like yourself, managed it. I was a kid who grew up in a pretty violent environment, dark, ghetto, poverty, all those kinds of things. And I learned to be tough. Am I tough? No, that's not my nature at all. But I learned to be. I even learned to look it. And you and I discussed before that I did martial arts and I boxed and and I've been a bodybuilder and all those kinds of things. It looks tough, but it's actually not who I am. But that was the facade I needed. And dealing with that shadow, dealing with that dark stuff, that rage and all those things, and then it becomes a fire and a passion that you can use. Do you find that you've now transmuted that into your sport?
I have, especially within this past year. This past year has been a very pivotal year for me as far as self-transformation.
Yes.
And being able to use everything. It's been, I feel like everything is built up to this past year, and all the things that are happening now, I definitely correlate it with the things that have happened to me in the past and it's been pretty phenomenal. I'm pretty excited for the stuff that's coming up, but yeah, it's I gotta say, I feel like I've lived about 2 lifetimes already.
Yeah, I understand. Now, you competed in London, is that correct?
Yes.
You competed in London. You're going to be competing in Tokyo.
I'm very excited about
that. You've been to London to represent the United States. You're going to Tokyo to represent Italy.
Correct.
Because you have both of those citizenships.
Yes.
For a moment there.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about that, first of all, give us a sort of brief look at what it was like to step into an Olympic stadium when the Olympics are on. I think that you may have even visited one before, but when you're there to compete, people say, you have to win for it to count. Bullshit. Like, if you can get to be an Olympian, you can even walk around, whether your name's Eddie the Eagle or whether your name's Usain Bolt, who gives a crap? You were an Olympian. That's amazing. Right. So tell us a little bit about stepping onto. Were you present, or was it something that sort of only hit you later?
You have so many things going on at that point. And,
I'm sure.
You have so many, especially, I think every athlete has their own story of how they've gotten there and all the trials and tribulations that they've had to go through in order to get there. It's all that work behind the scenes that nobody sees, and it's almost like you get to a point and you just take a deep breath and be like, gosh, I made it this far. Now what do I do? Just have fun at that point. Just have fun at that point. You have to enjoy that moment because it goes so quickly, but getting there was such a long road.
Exactly. So when you competed, did you run in one race or more than one?
Yeah, one race. One race, and wound up having an injury. Wound up tearing my hamstring, and yeah. So
how long were you actually running?
Gosh, between warm-ups and everything, maybe.
Actually, right there. They fired the gun, and you run until you take
10 seconds. 10 seconds.
10 seconds. Now, so I want everybody to grasp this because I talked a lot about this on other shows about this bullshit idea of the overnight success. Here's a guy ran for 10 seconds in the Olympics. How long if you were to guess, how long were you running in prep for that 10 seconds? All the preparation, all the races, all the stretching, all the warm-ups, all the other competitions.
So that's a question I tell people all the time, is that my week usually lasts, it's about 20 hours a week for a 20-second race.
Right.
You know, and it's just build up. And that goes for 4 years.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. It's cumulative.
Yeah.
Because it's over time, you know. So people say to me, "Oh, you know, you earned all this money for speaking for a keynote for an hour." I go, "No, I didn't.
No,
I spoke for an hour. I didn't earn the money for that. I earned the money for the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours I put into practicing and training and developing and learning and speaking on other stages. All those led me to that moment when you heard something that made you go, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, that
was all the prep. And I think we live in this instant gratification world where there's suddenly an Instagram superstar. I mean, who they even heard of an Instagram star 5 minutes ago? But now that, you know, so, you know, when you look at people who are real stars like yourself, who have worked so damn hard and continue to work hard, you realize that to even get to the Olympics, how many people are competing to get there? And then you get there, it's like, wow, that in and of itself for me is absolutely amazing. And I'm so in awe of the commitment and the dedication and all of those things that so easily slip through people's minds when they go, well, that guy was last. Hello, did you make it into being last? Could you make it into the stadium, let alone in the seats on the track? I don't think so.
Right, exactly.
You know, it's a fabulous piece because I want to just tap into that in the context of leadership, because I now know that you're speaking in different groups of leaders and entrepreneurs and such. Tell us this correlation, because I see this correlation very much in what I just said, and I'd love to hear your point on it.
Yeah, without a doubt. You said it best, is the instant gratification. And I was just sitting down last night with two very, very big CEOs, and they loved just kind of sitting across the table from me because they see what I do, how it correlates exactly with what they do. And I told them that everything that I do translates to business. And if you don't see that, then you aren't really looking at the grand picture of things in the sense of that so in business, you have your baseline. You have to have a blueprint. You have to have a vision. You have to know where exactly you're headed for, whether your 6 months projections, your 12 months projections, you know, a year projections. Same thing with us when we're on the track. Our season starts. I don't start racing until March. F that. But I'm training, and I start training in September just to be able to run my faster times in March, because I need all of that base work. You have to lay the groundwork, and that comes across everything. If you don't have the groundwork, you're working on a shaky foundation.
Now, one of the things you say in the context of that, which I really loved and I thought was really important, is that it's so important to recognize that you can't be at 100% all the time. Right. And I think that a lot of us in leadership, we're sort of like, you know, we're always aiming for the next bigger goal. But that's a foolish mentality, right?
Without a doubt. And I've had to learn that the hard way as well. You know, we want things, and we have huge goals set ahead, but we don't know all the things that are going to come before that could throw us off distraction wise and everything else. So my mentality, especially this year, and especially preparing for this last Olympic Games for myself, is just stacking up as many wins as I can. And that means just going into every session and breaking down new barriers. Every session, if I drop my times from the session before, the week before, that's a win for me. And the more I stack up those wins, the more progress I'm going to see, and the more motivation and the more momentum I'm building up behind that. And I think that's what people get lost in. The fact is, like, they don't see the little wins, and the little wins are what gang up, and they build up to the big wins.
But you know, in the context of that, though, you know, as somebody who's also an athlete,
Right.
not at your level, of course, but you know, I can remember when I started bodybuilding, and I trained for. There was one point where I trained 4 hours a day, and I trained 7 days a week, and I couldn't understand why I was getting smaller.
Mm-hmm.
It's because my body didn't have time to recover.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I was, you know, I was a big guy, but you know, I didn't have time to recover. And I think that this is a great analogy for you and what you did in the Olympics or Olympic training is you can't go 7 days a week full tilt.
No.
That's not going to work. And I think that we tend to try and do that in leadership.
Right.
So what do you say to a leader who's going, yeah, but I just got to get to the next big goal. I just got to get to the next big goal. What would you say to them about that?
Well,
the context of
I just had that conversation the other night as well, and I compare ourselves, and we compare ourselves to, let's say, like exotic cars and Ferraris, you know,
right.
and you know, you have Lamborghinis and all those cars. You cannot push these cars out of the blocks 150 miles an hour every day. The transmission is going to blow. Now, it's the same thing with us. If we're not getting in our nutrition on a daily basis, we're not doing all of our maintenance work on the back end, our recovery aspects where we have our massage therapies, we have our ice baths, we have our magnesium baths, we have IV aspects. And I take a little bit of a broader approach, especially now with all of the things that I've put on my platform as far as mentally, physically, spiritually, all of those things. I'm doing brain training aspects with Peak Brain, that they handle electrodes to help me to focus on things. Even when I'm mentally strung out, it helps me to maintain and build up that muscle just as well as I'm building up my body muscles as well.
Yeah.
So recovery is huge. You need to know when to back off the gas, and you need to know your body very well, and that goes with business as well. You know, you get burnt out just as well. It's you know, you have your nervous system burnt out, and you know, you're mentally fatigued. So you're going to go in there and either perform at 80 to 100% or perform at 30 to 50%. And it's going to be significant. And
True.
You know, so you just have to weigh out what's most important to you at that point, and you have to look at the bigger picture. If you have a little event coming up and you don't do as well, or if you have a little event and you really don't feel like it's going to be a factor for you to contribute to that big event, then axe it. You're not losing anything. You're not gonna, you're not losing any time. Everybody's so worried about time. Look, everybody's bills and all this other shit that's going on, it's not going anywhere. But
No.
if you're not maintaining your health on a daily basis, you're going to go somewhere very quickly.
Yeah, it's not upward.
No, it's not at all.
So it's interesting because going to that for a minute, let's go to that, because there's a downturn in your career. Mm-hmm. You're an Olympian. You tear a hamstring.
Yeah.
I imagine I'm not an Olympian.
Yeah.
I imagine that some people would say, you know what, I made it. I'm an Olympian. Mm-hmm. Sure, I tore a hamstring, but I'm out now. Mm-hmm. I can ride that. Right. I can go write my book. I can go on the talk shows. I can go on the podcasts. I can, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Why did you decide, no, that's not it. I'm not done. And what's more is, because the next Olympics was Brazil. You didn't go to Brazil, and you're going to go to Tokyo. So you did London, and so there's 8 years. Mm-hmm. It would be easy to go, at any point in that time. Tell us why you didn't take that as defeat and why you decided to move forward. Because I'm guessing there's leaders on here who have been at the top, got a CEO position, held a CEO position, lost it for whatever reason. Some of them probably lost it in a couple of months. Some of them lost it in a couple of years. Some shit happened that tore them down. They mentally, emotionally, even financially tore a hamstring, and they were out of the race. Why should they come back?
Well, I think that's a personal question, and I think that's
What made
individual.
you come back?
Well, exactly. My drive and everything came within the past year, and it came really, it was like I came back from Italy and I was competing over there, and things were kind of excelling very well for me there. And when I came back, I just really had kind of, I guess, I had this aha moment, you can say, and I wanted to do something that was bigger than I was. Yes, I was an athlete. I've been an athlete all my life, but there's athletes walking around all the time, and there's athletes that are just doing athlete things.
Absolutely.
I got to the point where I was like, well, how do I use the things that I have developed so much to make a bigger and broader impact? And that's when the Fostering Success brand came alive for me, and bringing that to light. And that became my passion. But behind that was really the key piece, because I was doing some back research at the time, and trying to get some questions answered about my past and parents wise and things. And my biggest fuel right now is, how do I honor my parents the best way possible, in the way that in the way that they impacted my life. My mother was a very big influence in my life. And just to kind of like, highlight that, before I was 34, I lost two sets of parents. And not many people can say that. I lost my birth parents and I lost my adopted parents to extreme situations. My mother, both my mothers on both sides, I lost them to cancer. My father, I lost to a irreversible coma. He got thrown from a golf cart and hit his head in all the right places that, caused all these injuries. So that period of time showed me how delicate life was. But also in that short period of time, if I really look at my life, I only had parents for 10 years out of all the years I've lived. So,
wow.
But I can't look at it in the sense that I was gypped. I look at it in the sense that in those 10 years, I've gotten so much value from them and so much impact from them that I have no choice but to do something bigger in order to use that. I'm not gonna sit here and be sorry for myself and say, gosh, it's not fair or whatever. And they say, yeah, it's not fair, but you know what? But what's fair? I mean, life isn't fair.
Right.
Shit. There's nothing fair in that. And so now I'm at the point where that has become the focal. And this is my last Olympics, and I plan to do some really, really big things. I'm in the best health of my career. I have some of the best coaches around me. I have great training partners, and I'm excelling so quickly that I feel like I've been reborn into the sport right now, and I haven't even seen the track yet, and I've been training for 2 months. This is all the outside stuff that we're doing, all park runs and all our drills, and fine tuning all of those little things. So when the time comes, I don't have to think about anything. I'm just running.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah.
So it seems like you found your fire again.
Yes.
And that has also spawned, as you talked about, Fostering Success. Tell us a little bit about Fostering Success, because that's also the title of one of your books. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that came about when as I said, I came back from Italy, but I really wanted to do a project that was entities of who I am, but it's not about me. And so I took the elite athlete side of who I am and also the foster kid side of who I am. I've married those two together, and I've brought together a 30-page documentary book where I'm bringing in 15 female elite athletes and celebrities and 15 male elite athletes and celebrities. And they're shooting alongside foster kids, and I'm documenting each and every one of their days together. Some short questions with that, but the book is mostly about the essence of the pictures and what they're getting from those pictures, and seeing how the interactions of those two worlds that have impacted my life but now are impacting these other kids' lives, and really giving these kids an outlet at such an early age to be around professional athletes, and they get those connections where they keep those connections, because the athletes love interacting with these kids because they feel like they're giving back and they're developing that charity arm that they need. And the kids see it as an outlet for them, is that, hey, I can do this. They're just regular people like me. All I need to do is be around the right people and put in the work that I need to put in early.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So I got to ask you a tough question, and I think it's an appropriate question because I think that people go through stuff. So the example might be Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm in a person says, I'm in a small business, retail, and Amazon is killing the industry. Mm-hmm. And they're asking you for some guidance in how do you keep going? Mm-hmm. And the analogy I'll give you is is why the hell would anybody bother racing? Nobody's going to beat Usain Bolt. Mm-hmm. Right. So I guess it would be easy for an athlete to go, I'll wait till he's dead and then I'll compete. Right. Because, he seems like he's unbeatable. So why would somebody get into the race knowing that, even at a business level, you're competing with Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. So, Usain is the Amazon, comparatively speaking. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I think first and foremost that comes down to your core values, your core values of yourself. Right. If you're already counting yourself out before you even step to the line, you've lost.
Right.
That's first and foremost. And a lot of people do that.
Absolutely.
Self-sabotage. Secondly, in my sport, we run in lanes. Just as in business, you need to stay in your lane. You don't worry about the person next to you. You can't worry about the person on the inside of you, because if you start doing that, what you're going to do is start running their race instead of running your race. And then your whole business model is thrown out the window, because you start picking up entities of what they're doing and you lose sight of your own core values. And then that business becomes an exact cookie cutter of something else that you didn't want it to be. Mm-hmm. So I think those are very key aspects to developing a business that emulates who you are, what you want it to represent. And then ultimately, yes, it's going to change, and it's going to change because everything's evolving around us, technology and everything. So you do have to try to stay ahead of the curve. But as long as you're staying within those core values, that business is going to stay true to what you want it to be. So I think that's very important. And the whole aspect of, you have people, it's the same thing from CEO to, that trickles down to their employees. Everybody's hired for a specific reason because of their special qualities. When people start to cross over and start to think that they know more than this person or they know more than that person, that's when the friction starts to happen. And that's what I mean by people aren't staying in their lanes. If people would stay in their lane and do what they're good at, everything would be so much more fluid. Everything would run so much better, and you'd have less problems, and you'd be more productive.
You sound like you might have picked up a couple of your mother's control issues. I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, that's her. That is so her.
There's mom's influence just sneaking right out into business.
Yeah, that's her.
That's funny. Mm-hmm. So, we've all been on this journey called success, and that is not a path from A to B. It's always a bit of a wiggly path. What was something you did for a long time that you probably thought was good at the time, but you're now looking back, you realize it was actually blocking you from success?
I think my biggest aspect is that I have so many things that I want to do, and I have so many things on my plate, but I can't do everything now. And I spread.
Your mother's talking to you right now. Stay in your lane, boy.
Exactly. And I had a tendency to spread myself thin a lot. And I was like, gosh, why isn't this taking off? Or why isn't that taking off? Or, I wanted to start a kind of a training platform that was called Empowering Movement. And then it really wasn't doing anything, and I wasn't doing anything with it. And I just wasn't passionate about it. I just didn't have that. I was like, gosh, I just felt like I was doing what everybody else was doing.
Right.
And it wasn't about, and it really didn't, it didn't have that oomph of who I'm. It didn't light me up when I thought
Nope.
about it
Right.
at all. And so I was just dabbling in a bunch of things, and it was just like, gosh, I'm not doing anything now. This fostering success project that I'm doing, I feel, was a kind of a level up from that empowering movement project. And every time I speak about it, and every time I speak about it to somebody else, everybody loves it, and they love all the aspects of it, because there's several entities to it. So I feel like I've had to go through those growing pains, and I'm still going through them. And I love learning from CEOs, and I love learning from other businessmen, because they love to hear my aspect as an athlete and how I translate that to business, and that work ethic, and that due diligence, and that productivity, and that, that flow that I tried to bring off the track into my business life. But I always have to be, as an athlete, and I think also that translates very well to a CEO, you have to be coachable.
Absolutely.
And if you're not willing to be coachable, you're dead. You're going to get shot down. And it's just like, then what are you doing? You have to be an open book and go into every situation in a sense that, it doesn't matter if you're Tony Robbins or any of them. I'm sure these guys love to go into them. That's like, I'm an empty page. Just tell me exactly everything you want.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with that. Now, obviously, fostering success is a big thing for you. It's a way for you to give back and have impact. But I wonder, what do you see that we, as in the viewers and the listeners and myself, what can we personally do in order to make a greater impact within our own communities? From your point of view, how can we best contribute?
Well, I think that without a doubt, it definitely starts with our kids. Our kids in this day and age they're a little lost. They're a little lost. They don't have a lot of guidance. They don't have a lot of mentors. They don't have a lot of people to look up to. I had this conversation with, it's one of the smartest people that I know, and she handles all of my blood work. She handles all of the intricate stuff that makes me fire and makes my body move. And she asked me if I had a child, and if my son was growing up, and there was one person that I needed to put in the forefront that he could really look up to as a mentor, look up to as, somebody that I would like to mold him after, who would it be? I was totally blank. I went blank, and that's a problem. That's a problem.
That's a state of our leadership today.
Yes, without a doubt. And so I think that's what I'm trying to do for myself. And I think everybody has some type of leadership skills, and everybody has something they can offer somebody else that somebody else needs. And that's the beauty part of what we do and how we bring color to the world, because we're all unique. We're not gingerbread. We're not Christmas gingerbread cookies.
Right.
We're not being cut out of the oven, and we're not all the same. So, I'm on this podcast with you because you've done plenty, as far as CEO and speaking aspect. That's what attracted me to you. And and all of the other people you've had on your podcast, I want to be within that niche of people. So I think if we find our niche, and if we find those groups, as groups, we can do more than as individuals. And that's where our firepower can come from.
Absolutely.
So
tell us, Stephen, what brings you joy? What actually brings you joy?
I think
not happiness, because there's something deeper than that, right?
Right, exactly. My joy aspect, I know now, is seeing the reaction from people that feel that they're going through something that is unsurmountably impossible to get over, and I'm able to help them in the sense of being able to relate to them in the biggest way possible with my story, but not coming forth as a sense of my story is more important than your story, because it's not at all.
No.
It's just how I use it as a catalyst instead of a crutch. Yeah. And I just love being able to watch people light up in the sense of, shit, I can do this. It's not as bad as I think I am. And that's a huge aspect. I think we lose sight of contrast for life. And
that is true.
We think we have it so bad here, and but if you have food, or if you have food in your fridge, you have a roof over your head, and you have a bed to sleep in at night, gosh, you have a lot more than a lot of other people have.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a first world individual. I live in the first world. I have traveled and spent a lot of time in many different countries. And one of the things I always say to people is, listen, I've been in the toilet, I've been in the dumper, but one of the things is, remember that your problems are probably first world problems. They really are. And, I'm very interested in international leadership and international politics. Mm-hmm. And I see photographs of children in Yemen, who are innocent children being bombed by drones. And I'm like, this is insane in the modern world. It's insane. And at the same time, also being aware that I live in the safest time in history. Right. So it's really important that we get that clarity that these are first world problems. Mm-hmm. And we've got to step into recognizing that and how blessed we are.
Right.
So, you're a high level individual. You're going to be an Olympian again. What's a guilty pleasure?
In what sense? Food wise or
any wise? Whatever's a guilty pleasure for you.
Oh man,
we're E-rated, so you can say whatever you want. E for explicit.
Man, guilty pleasures. Let's see. I love. You would think that I have like the cleanest diet in the world, but it's far from it. It's far from it. And I've been blessed in that sense, but it also has to do with the training. I'm training so many hours, but I do love my wine. I'm a big fan of chartreuse. I love drinking chartreuse. But it's all in moderation. I know that my trigger, I'm very left or right, so I'm very extreme. So it's either I'm all in or I'm all out. So if I get a couple of drinks in me and I go out, like, oh yeah, whatever. I only weigh right now 180 pounds, but if I go out for a party or a birthday or something like that, I've had a tendency to drink like I'm a 300-pound lineman.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's gotten me in trouble a couple of times. But I just love enjoying life right now. I love going out to dinners. I love enjoying food. I've done back living on the East Coast. I've been through every club since I was like 16, and I've gotten that all out of my system.
Right.
I've been through my darkest times. Right now, my guilty pleasure is just doing as many new things as possible and experience as much as I can, from skydiving and doing a bunch of things. I just need to enjoy this second half of my life. Is really, I feel like I'm starting to live my life now. I've been through all the bullshit. I've gotten through all of the shit that probably people are still waiting to go through. I feel like I've excelled in that sense. I'm an overachiever in getting the bullshit out of my life.
Well, I don't know that this is the second half of your life. It might be the second third.
Third, yeah. Maybe, I'll take that.
Maybe even the second quarter, depending on how long you're going to live. If this is the second half of your life, yeah. I'm about to die in a minute now.
That is true.
So as we come to the end of the show, one of the things I would like for you to do, I like my guests to share something, based on what you've been talking about, but something that you would like as a practical piece of guidance. What is it you would say to our viewers, to our listeners, that would be a solid piece of practical guidance that they could go put in action today? Something they could go do certainly within the next few days, maybe 5 at the most, that would really allow them to integrate what it is you've been sharing with us.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is focus on the little wins throughout the day, and that's what keeps you going. Like whatever the case is, whether they're you get a new client, or you get an extra bit of income that comes in that day, or it was just a good day, you had a good meeting, or whatever the case. Focus on those little things, because those are little things. We got so much distractions and media around us, and all the bad news that we're constantly getting, that it's so easy to focus on those things. So if you can focus on the little wins each and every day, then you're starting to build a rapport with yourself, and you're starting to build that winning mentality, that motivation, that momentum on a consistent basis. And that's where you get those trigger points, and that's how you start building. I mean, all these guys that are, huge at the top of their game, they didn't start out with these big wins. They start out with little things, little wins on a daily basis. And then lastly, without a doubt, is stay within the process. Stay within the process. And I mean by just knowing that even in the toughest times, know that you're in the process and you're learning from that process, even when you don't see proof. So stay within the process when you don't see the proof. Those are where the winners are built. It's those guys that want to bow out because things get hard.
Yeah.
And they can't hack it, and they don't have the thick skin to take the hits, and to, we call our skin, or I call that inner aspect our armor, and our armor is going to take a bunch of hits, and they're going to get dings, and they're going to get scratches, but your armor is never going to crack if you don't let it crack. So it's our under armor. We kind of, push through it.
So stay with the process, even though.
Yeah, you don't see the proof.
That's great advice. Stephen, this has been an absolute pleasure and honor. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys so much.
Please tell our viewers, our listeners, where they can find out more about you, they can find out about the books, about all the resources that you have.
Yeah, you can find me all over social media. You can find me, my Instagram is Stevie B, so STEVIEY_B. You can find StevieB.com. Fostering Success Instagram page, you can find all about their stuff. Splash page is be up momentarily for Fostering Success Project. You can reach out to any of those handles, Twitter, Facebook. I'm very receptive. I answer back personally, because I always like to build those relationships, and I always like to make sure that they know that they're talking to a real person and not talking to a bot. So, that's where you can find me. Any questions, and all questions are accepted. Please
give us that website again.
StevieB.com, and also FosteringSuccess.com. FosteringSuccess.com, I think.
All right. So Stevie B is spelled differently, though.
STEVIEY.
IEY. There you go.
IEY, yes.
StevieB.com.
Yeah.
And FosteringSuccess.com, right?
Correct.
We will make sure those get out to, of course, on our show notes, so that everybody has the option of going to those. Again, we want to really thank you for being with us. This was truly a pleasure and honor. Thank you so much. And we've learned a lot, and it's been fabulous having you here. Thank you.
I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you very much for having me.
Our pleasure. I hope you'll stay with us to the end. And I want to just say to you, dear listener, dear viewer, remember, information's worth the hole in the donut. Transformation comes from application. So don't just listen, do. Remember, you can chat about this show with our other listeners about this show or other episodes of the show by just going to our Facebook community page, the Dov Baron Leadership and Loyalty Podcast, and find us there. And remember, the research consistently shows that one of the biggest challenges facing the most successful companies can be somewhat counterintuitive, in that these fast-growing companies often hit a point where they realize they're spending a fortune training and developing talent, only to have them leave at an alarming rate. If you're sick of investing in training and developing your talent, only have them leave before you get your ROI, then come talk to us at fullmontyleadership.com, where we provide you with the essential leadership skills to rekindle the hidden loyalty aspects inside of your organization by tapping into purpose. fullmontyleadership.com, providing you with the concrete skills to get you and your organization to the top and keep you there. Why? Because you can't outsource authenticity. Also remember to stop by the Matrix, matrix.fullmontyleadership.com, and get your authentic leadership matrix self-assessment tool. It's valued at $197. It's absolutely free to you for tuning in. Matrix, like the movie, .fullmontyleadership.com. You don't need the triple W. And remember, you can play us on Google Play and Alexa Home just by saying play Dove Baron podcast. Thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about how you can create a greater impact inside your own direct community. I'm Dove Baron, and I'm here to assist you tapping into your deep greatness to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, your leadership impact. And I am out.